President Curtis takes one of the most unexpected ideas for an animated comedy and somehow makes it work. Instead of focusing on political drama or realistic satire, the series imagines a world where the President of the United States spends less time signing legislation and more time battling vampires, ghosts, cryptids, and legendary monsters hiding across America. It is an outrageous premise that embraces complete absurdity from the very beginning, yet thanks to sharp writing, entertaining characters, and a fantastic lead performance from Keith David, the show quickly establishes its own identity instead of feeling like another Rick and Morty clone. Although President Curtis exists as a spin-off connected to Rick and Morty, it wisely avoids trying to copy everything that made its predecessor successful. Rather than relying on multiverse adventures and endless science fiction concepts, the series keeps its focus on Earth while turning American history, conspiracy theories, and folklore into the foundation of its comedy. The result feels like a fun combination of supernatural action, workplace comedy, and political satire, with just enough chaos to keep every episode unpredictable. At the center of the story is President Andre Curtis, voiced brilliantly by Keith David. Curtis is nothing like the stereotypical television president audiences might expect. He is bold, confident, and never afraid to throw himself directly into danger. If there is a vampire threatening national security or a legendary creature destroying part of the country, Curtis is perfectly willing to handle the problem himself instead of hiding behind security teams or government officials. That immediately makes him an entertaining protagonist because his priorities are completely different from what audiences normally associate with the White House. Keith David is unquestionably the biggest reason the character works so well. His naturally commanding voice gives Curtis instant authority, but he also delivers every ridiculous joke with complete confidence. Whether Curtis is making dramatic presidential speeches after defeating mythical creatures or casually talking about bizarre supernatural incidents as if they are part of everyday politics, David commits completely to the role. The performance never feels forced. Instead, he creates a character who is larger than life while remaining surprisingly relatable. Curtis has flaws, personal insecurities, and emotional struggles beneath all the action hero confidence, making him far more interesting than a simple, unstoppable leader. The supporting cast plays an equally important role in making the series enjoyable. Jim Rash voices Special Agent O'Doyle, one of the funniest characters in the show. As a powerful half-leprechaun with complete loyalty to the president, O'Doyle constantly finds himself involved in increasingly ridiculous situations. His straightforward personality and dry delivery create many of the series' funniest moments, while also giving the team a dependable presence during dangerous missions. Stephanie Beatriz is equally impressive as Chief of Staff Banks. Banks combines intelligence, advanced cybernetic technology, and endless patience, while trying to keep both Curtis and O'Doyle focused on the mission. Her technological abilities allow the series to introduce creative solutions to supernatural problems, while her sarcastic reactions often provide the perfect balance to the chaos surrounding her. Together, Curtis, O'Doyle, and Banks quickly become the emotional heart of the series. Their constant arguments, sarcastic conversations, and growing trust create a believable team dynamic that feels much deeper than a typical workplace comedy. Over time, they begin feeling less like coworkers and more like an unconventional family trying to protect the country from threats most people never even realize exist. One of the show's greatest strengths is its creative use of American history and folklore. Instead of simply introducing random monsters every week, President Curtis builds entire stories around famous historical events, national landmarks, and long-standing conspiracy theories. The Louisiana Purchase, Mount Rushmore, Camp David, and even moon landing conspiracies become opportunities for supernatural storytelling. This clever approach gives each episode its own identity while rewarding viewers who enjoy seeing historical myths reimagined through a humorous lens. The monster designs are equally entertaining. Every episode introduces strange new creatures ranging from ghosts and witches to aliens and legendary giants. Rather than becoming frightening, these supernatural threats are usually played for laughs, creating action scenes that are energetic without ever losing the series' comedic tone. Visually, President Curtis fits perfectly within Adult Swim's animation style. The animation is expressive, colorful, and packed with clever visual jokes that reward attentive viewers. Character expressions are exaggerated enough to enhance the comedy, while the action sequences remain fluid and exciting whenever supernatural battles begin. The pacing also deserves praise. Most episodes move quickly without feeling rushed, constantly introducing new ideas while giving the characters enough time to interact naturally. The writing balances fast comedy with occasional emotional moments surprisingly well, allowing the relationships to develop alongside the monster hunting adventures. Another pleasant surprise is the show's overall tone. Despite dealing with politics, government conspiracies, and supernatural disasters, President Curtis rarely becomes cynical. Instead, it embraces optimism and adventure. The comedy comes from ridiculous situations rather than relentless negativity, making it feel refreshing compared to many modern animated series that rely heavily on dark humor or constant pessimism. That lighter approach gives President Curtis its own personality. However, the series is not completely without weaknesses. After several episodes, the overall structure becomes somewhat predictable. A strange supernatural threat appears. The team argues over how to solve it. They eventually work together to stop the crisis before moving on to the next bizarre adventure. While each monster is different, the storytelling rhythm remains fairly similar throughout the season. Viewers watching multiple episodes in one sitting may begin noticing that repetition. The connection to Rick and Morty also creates certain expectations. Fans hoping for non-stop multiverse chaos, complex science fiction concepts, or wildly unpredictable storytelling may find President Curtis intentionally more grounded. That is not necessarily a flaw, but it does mean the series chooses consistency and character development over endless escalation. Some supporting storylines also feel like they could have received additional attention. The world itself is filled with fascinating ideas involving hidden supernatural history, secret government organizations, and mythical creatures living alongside humanity. Future seasons could explore these concepts much more deeply while expanding the universe beyond the Monster of the Week format. Fortunately, these minor issues never overshadow the show's biggest strengths. Strong voice performances, consistently entertaining humor, and charming character relationships keep every episode enjoyable even when individual stories follow familiar patterns. Most importantly, President Curtis successfully establishes itself as something more than a simple spin-off. Instead of depending entirely on Rick and Morty's popularity, it creates a fresh identity built around monster hunting, political comedy, and American folklore. By the end of the first season, the series leaves audiences with plenty of exciting possibilities for future adventures while delivering satisfying standalone stories along the way. Keith David leads an outstanding voice cast with charisma, confidence, and perfect comic timing, while the supporting characters ensure there is always plenty of energy and laughter in every episode. If you enjoy supernatural adventures, workplace comedies, conspiracy theories, animated action, and clever historical references, President Curtis offers a highly entertaining combination of all those elements. It may not reach the same level of unpredictable insanity as Rick and Morty, but it never tries to imitate it. Instead, it embraces its own strengths and delivers a fun, lighthearted series full of memorable characters, creative monster battles, and plenty of laugh-out-loud moments. President Curtis is exactly the kind of animated comedy that understands its audience. It knows when to be ridiculous, when to slow down for character development, and when to simply enjoy the absurdity of watching the President of the United States save the world from monsters. For anyone looking for an entertaining animated series packed with humor, supernatural adventure, and surprisingly lovable characters, President Curtis is absolutely worth adding to your watch list. It is a refreshing addition to Adult Swim's lineup and one of the most enjoyable animated comedies to arrive this year.